13 Reasons Why is a teen drama and mystery series that premiered its first season in 2017. Met with harsh criticism as well as worldwide praise, the story of 13 Reasons Why deals with the suicide of Hannah Baker, who left tapes behind for her high school peers explaining how they contributed to her wanting to end her life. The first season focuses on the events that led up to her death as well as the aftermath that transpired afterward. With the second season's trailer released and the premiere being May 18th, I thought it'd be good to get everyone caught up on the first season. My name is Ricky and this is my recap and review of 13 Reasons Why Season 1. Now, I'm going to do my recap first and then I'm going to do my review afterwards. I'm going to talk how I felt about the season, the controversy surrounding it, and my predictions for what's going to happen in Season 2. I know there's a lot of backlash for this show and controversy surrounding it, so I'm going to try to give an in-depth review of how I feel about everything and also talk a little bit about what Season 2 can probably do better than Season 1. I love the show regardless. There are things to nitpick at, but like I said, I will get into all of that after my recap. Clay Jensen, played by Dylan Minnette, is the story's main character as it shows his journey through listening to the tapes that Hannah left behind following her suicide. After he gets a package containing the tapes on his front steps, he quickly learns that if anyone has received the tapes, they are one of the reasons why Hannah had taken her life. She leaves instructions for each person on the tapes to pass it on to the next person after they've finished listening to all of them, and if anyone were to break this chain, the second set of tapes she made would be released to the public. Clay is emotionally distraught upon hearing he is one of the reasons she decided to take her life, and with those feelings, takes quite a while to listen to the entirety of them as each tape seemingly gets worse and worse. He eventually learns that the mysterious Tony was put in charge of making sure each person on the tapes passed them down to the next person. The first tape Clay listens to is that of Justin Foley, a high school jock that comes from a troubled home life. After Hannah's best friend Kat moves away from school, Hannah gets the okay to date Kat's ex-boyfriend, Justin. Everything seems to be going well at first until Justin shows a pic he took of Hannah going down a slide with her underwear showing to a group of his jock friends, who then send it around the school, kicking off the slew of rumors and insults directed towards Hannah from her peers. The second tape shows how Hannah and Jessica Davis's friendship took a wrong turn. They were made to become friends after a visit to the school counselor after a few weeks of being at a new school. They started to hang out almost every day and had also met up with Alex Standall, who joined the group to make 3 best friends. After a while though, Alex started to distance himself from the group hangouts, followed by Jessica, which left Hannah alone and with no one. She eventually finds out the reason Jessica and Alex stopped hanging out with her is because they started a relationship of their own. Later on in the tapes you learn that Jessica and Alex had broken up, and a certain list Alex created had made Jessica thinks Alex cheated on her with Hannah and officially cemented the end of their relationship. The third tape was made for Alex Standall, whose list is revealed to be one that was intentionally spiteful towards Jessica. She does confront Alex about everything, and Alex, unlike most people on the tapes, is actually sorry for what he did, as he didn't really mean to cause harm to Hannah and it was out of his character. After feeling broken down, she and Clay start to grow closer and closer towards each other, which starts to make Hannah feel better for the meantime. This episode also shows Clay tutoring another jock at the high school named Jeff, whom he eventually forms a close bond with. Hannah tells of how she was tormented at school because of the list, but also about how Bryce groped her in a liquor store and made lewd comments as well as saying the list got it right. Clay was at the same liquor store that Bryce groped Hannah, and Bryce and his friends forced Alex and Clay to chug malt liquor, otherwise they would fight him. When Tony didn't come to his rescue, Clay followed him to an area where he finds Tony jumping someone with a few other guys, which was never fully explained, just that someone messed with his sister and him and his brothers took care of it. At the end of an episode filled with Alex feeling extremely remorseful and being extremely unhappy with the people he's around, he tries to drown himself in Bryce's pool unsuccessfully as Hannah's tape of Alex talks about the butterfly effect. Hannah instructs Clay or whoever is listening to go to Tyler Downs' backyard, who is the subject of the 4th tape. Marcus, the school's student council president, interrupts Clay and reveals that he's also on the tapes, and he and everyone on the tapes broke Tyler's window each time one of them listened. In the flashback of this tape, Hannah gets the feeling she's being watched, which sure enough, it was Tyler stalking and taking pictures of her. Courtney and Hannah start to form a friendship, and Courtney offers to help catch whoever is taking pictures of Hannah. When Courtney is sleeping over Hannah's house, they start to drink and get more comfortable with each other, eventually starting to kiss, which Tyler then takes a picture of and they realize it's him. When past day Tyler got caught, he was confronted by Hannah, whom he then gave what was said to be all of the pictures, only to afterwards send the most damning picture of Courtney and Hannah to half of the school, which then got Courtney upset with Hannah. Courtney worried her secret of being attracted to women would get out to the school. Near the end of the episode, Clay is about to throw a rock in Tyler's window. Instead, he decides to take a picture of Tyler naked and sends it to a lot of people at the school as a means to give Tyler a taste of his own medicine. and to make Clay's own justice for Hannah. The fifth tape is when the show starts to take a more depressing turn. You can see the happiness that Hannah has in the flashbacks start to fade, and it only seems to get more cruel from here on out. The episode starts with Tyler being tormented about his picture and getting angry at Clay. Throughout the episode, Tyler is the butt of the joke, no pun intended, and he's also excluded from the group of kids who have listened to their tapes. The flashback has Clay signing up for the winter formal and Courtney pushing Hannah to sign up as well. She gets her dress and corsage and gets a car from her parents, making this one of the best days of her life, or at least it was supposed to be. Everybody seems to be having fun until Montgomery, one of the school's bullies, tries to dance with and hit on Courtney, and suggests that it's Hannah and Courtney in the picture that Tyler took. Courtney panics and tells Montgomery that it was Hannah and another girl at the school who was a lesbian, and Montgomery tells Hannah about what Courtney said. He also goes on to tell her that he heard Hannah ask Courtney for a three-way, and also Justin fingered Hannah and she went down on him. Hannah confronts Courtney and says that she doesn't get to screw with Hannah's life because Courtney doesn't like who she is. After this, Hannah and Jessica make up after Hannah offers to drive her home. Present-day Clay tells Courtney he's not having a good time and brings her to Hannah's grave. He blames Courtney as being part of the reason she killed herself, and that she tries to cover her tracks by pretending she cares in front of the rest of the school. She breaks down and apologizes, saying she would do anything to protect her two gay dads from more scrutiny, but Clay tells her she should have apologized to Hannah and not him. After this happens, Clay rides his bike home but is forced by Justin, Alex, and Zach, another high school jock, to get in Alex's car. In an attempt to scare him, Alex turns off the headlights at night and floors the gas. Alex quickly gets pulled over by a cop who is revealed to be his dad. His dad lets him off, which prompts Justin to warn Clay not to mess with them because they are, quote, bulletproof. Later, Clay learns that his mom took a case from the school to fight against Hannah's parents in a lawsuit. The beginning of episode 6 starts with Alex getting fed up with the popular kids, and he winds up in a bloody fight with Montgomery. The school shrugs it off as not a case of bullying because it technically didn't happen on school grounds, and set them up to meet with the student honor board. In the flashbacks, the school is hosting Dollar Valentine fundraiser that acts as a matchmaker for the students. When Clay is tutoring Jeff, he offers to help Clay and change his answers to make him seem a little less dorky, which in turn is implied as a reason why he didn't turn up as any of Hannah's matches. Hannah then learns that Marcus Cole, the subject of the 6th tape, had her as his top match and asks her on a date. He ends up not showing up until an hour later, but with a few of his jock friends. He tries to come on strong to Hannah because he thinks she wants to have sex with him, and tries to give a show to his friends at the diner, even though she repeatedly tells him no. She pushes him off, and he says that he thought she was easy. Marcus is also a part of the student honor board that Alex and Montgomery had to sit in front of, which also included Courtney, Sherry, and Clay. Alex scoffs at the remarks that Marcus keeps making about the school being safe, and mocks them for not being honorable at all. Later on, he has a talk with his dad, and instead of his dad trying to talk with Alex, he talks to him, and tells him that he's proud of him for standing up for himself, instead of making sure he was okay and asking if anything was wrong. We also see Jessica start to drink heavily to cope with her emotions. The 7th episode focuses on Zach Dempsey, who comforts Hannah after her spat with Marcus and his friends at the diner. He tries as hard as he can to be nice to her because he wanted her to be his Valentine, and ended up giving her a backhanded compliment on accident the day after, which she in turn yells at him for and tells him to leave her alone. She tried to open up to him by writing him a heartfelt letter, which he threw away, or so she thought. This made Clay go outside of school during a basketball game to key his car. After Clay was confronted by Zach's mom, Zach reveals he actually kept the letter, and we get the first bit of proof that not everything Hannah says on the tapes is 100% correct. The whole episode shows Clay slowly starting to lose his mind as he sees and hears things that aren't really happening, such as Hannah's dead body being on the basketball floor during a game, or the new girl and Tyler saying what he did to Hannah was messed up when they didn't. In the 8th episode, the students who heard the tapes have decided Clay is getting out of control. Justin seems to be the only one that really wants to hurt Clay and insists that Hannah was lying. The 8th tape starts with Hannah going to a poetry group, which Ryan Shaver is a part of. She writes a very emotional poem that showed her true pain. Ryan thought it should be published, but she objects. Of course, he goes on to publish it anonymously, which then gets everyone making fun of the poem and speculating who wrote it. Even her teacher read it aloud to Hannah's class, with everyone laughing at it. At the end of the episode, Clay finds a poem he didn't know was Hannah's until that day, and gives it to her mother. As horrifying as some of these next topics are for the rest of the season, I thought it brought up a huge conversation, and even with the warnings in 3 of these upcoming episodes, it still managed to spark a lot of controversy. Jessica Davis's alcohol problem is getting worse now that she is drinking at school and not showing up to cheer practice. In the flashback, we see Hannah got her hair cut a lot shorter as a means to change her identity, and was invited to a party that she knew she didn't want to go to. Unfortunately, the events that happened at this party and afterward are the subject of the next 3 tapes, and lead up to the last 2 as well. Hannah's parents start to argue more and more about their business having too much competition, so much so that they start losing the attention of Hannah. In the present day, Alex is fed up with Justin and the rest of the group trying to stop Clay from holding them accountable and telling the truth. He almost gets into a fight with Justin and implies that he would kill himself if Justin died too. Tape 9 started by telling how Hannah started off at the party with Clay when everyone was drinking. Jessica, on the other hand, was getting too intoxicated to the point where she was stumbling everywhere. After Hannah is seen crying in Jessica's room, she has to hide when Justin and Jessica enter to start making out. Jessica ends up passing out on Justin, who walks out. Hannah tries to leave, but then someone else comes in. She goes into the closet and stays quiet while Bryce ends up sexually assaulting and raping Jessica. The assault was shown from 3 different point of views. Once from Hannah's point of view, once from Justin's, who was shown to have tried to stop it, but after he was unsuccessful, didn't do or say anything to stop it from happening, and another from Jessica's, who we learn was awake when it all happened, crying and telling him to stop. It's then that we find out Jessica is in denial of it happening, and everyone is telling her otherwise in order to get her to not say anything, because it would be at the expense of their own self-interest. Hannah, extremely upset, comes out of the closet to put a blanket over Jessica and goes back downstairs. Sherry, who is number 10 on the tapes, walks over to Hannah and offers her a ride home. Hannah obliges, and Sherry asks Jeff to move his car for her, which he then says he's going on a beer run anyways. Sherry and Hannah start to drive home when Sherry isn't paying attention, and she crashes into a stop sign, knocking it down. Hannah doesn't want to leave and wants to report it to the police, much to the dismay of Sherry, who wanted to go back home so her dad wouldn't find out. She ends up leaving Hannah at the scene. It is revealed that Jeff had been in a car accident with another driver at the same location that Sherry knocked down the stop sign. Clay had heard the crash and tried his best to save both Jeff and the other driver and called the cops immediately. Unfortunately, Jeff had already died as a result of the crash. Clay finally finds out that the 11th tape is his. Clay's reasoning for being on the tapes wasn't necessarily about what he did, but rather what he didn't do. The 11th episode shows why Hannah was in Jessica's room that night, right before Jessica was assaulted. She had gone upstairs with Clay and they had started to kiss. Hannah panics, only thinking about all the names she had been called and the tormenting she had faced. She freaks out at Clay, who immediately apologizes. She yells at him to go away, to which she partly just wanted him to stay and say his true feelings for her so that she felt safe, but he didn't. Near the end of the episode, Clay blames himself for every bad thing that happened that night, as the domino effect started with him leaving the room. Clay asks his mom a slew of questions about an assault that he says hypothetically happened, and if the person who committed the crime could be charged and put away. She said it would be very hard to charge someone if the person who it happened to won't say anything and the person who witnessed it won't come forward, leaving Clay not knowing what to do next. Clay also asks Sherry why she didn't tell Jeff's parents about the sign after he passed, and she says no one can know for sure if it was the sign because he was driving drunk. She shows him later on that she helps out the other man who was involved in the accident, but it's not good enough for Clay, who wants her to tell Jeff's parents about the sign. She refuses, saying she can't face them yet. Hannah tried to tell Clay about the sign and about what had happened to Jessica, but he was angry and told her that she's making everyone's drama her own because she barely even knew Jeff. In present day, Justin learns that Jessica is staying at Bryce's house and tries to pull her away. She asks why he cares so much and he confesses that Bryce raped her. She slaps him and says she hates him, and Bryce acts like he did nothing wrong. Clay learns from his mother that the Bakers turned down a settlement from the school and that their lawyer is deposing students from the school to testify. Now we get to the final 2 episodes, which personally had me bawling my eyes out, and I'm sure a lot of other people too. Each of the students that are on the tapes besides Bryce and Sherry get deposed to testify, as well as Mr. Porter and Principal Bolin. Tyler tells Courtney and Marcus that he wants in on whatever they're doing, and Marcus warns him again to stay away and keep his mouth shut before Montgomery comes over and pushes him down and bullies him again. After Bryce breaks it up, Tyler says that he's, quote, sick of this shit, and walks away. In a flashback this episode, Hannah offers to bring money to deposit into the bank for her parents as they're having money issues. She accidentally leaves it on top of the car and it ends up falling off, which gets her parents mad at her. She tries also to talk to Clay that day after the party, and Clay expresses disinterest in the conversation because of what had happened the night before. Hannah sneaks out to go for a walk after feeling lost and empty. She ends up at a party at Bryce's house and goes in the hot tub with Jessica and Zach, who both end up leaving just her in there, to which Bryce ends up going in. He He comes on to Hannah and she tries to get away, but he pulls her back and throws her down and ends up sexually assaulting and raping her. After this event, she starts making a list to figure out how her life started going so wrong. In present day, we see Tyler buying a gun from a stranger before joining the group of students in the tapes at a coffee shop, Monet's, and they all try to figure out what to say during the depositions. Sherry doesn't end up going to the meeting and calls the police to finally turn herself in about what had happened the night that Jeff died. Courtney thinks that they should say that Hannah is a liar during the depositions before Alex tells of how Justin told Jessica the truth at Bryce's the previous night. Ryan is on Justin's side because Bryce is a rapist, but Courtney refuses to believe it for fear of her own truth coming out. Tyler wants to turn Bryce in and use him as a scapegoat for the school in order to save the rest of them. Tyler hints that Hannah did not even say the whole story, and Courtney says no one will believe him if he knows anything. Olivia Baker shows Tony the list she found tucked away in Hannah's room with the names of the people on the tapes, and asks him why his name was circled. He lies and says he doesn't know, and afterwards ponders if keeping the tapes a secret is the right idea. Clay goes to Bryce's and pretends to want to buy weed, and ends up confronting him about when he raped Hannah. He won't leave until Bryce admits that he did it, and Bryce says she wanted it. Clay punches him, which ultimately was a bad move because Bryce beats the crap out of him. After Clay wakes up from being unconscious, he finally gets the confession he needed. Unbeknownst to Bryce, Clay recorded the whole thing on a 14th tape he made. Back at Justin's place, he gets assaulted from his mom's boyfriend for getting deposed and having cops come to their house. He ends up running away and taking his mom's boyfriend gun with him and a duffel bag with his stuff. He has nowhere to go because he won't go to Bryce's and Zach won't answer him. The final episode shows Hannah giving life one last try by seeing Mr. Porter to talk to him about everything, to which Mr. Porter is of no help and doesn't grasp the severity of what Hannah was trying to say when she said she wanted to end it all and that she was attacked at a party. He tells her to move on from it because she wouldn't give him a name, which makes her leave, and he doesn't follow her. In present day, we see all of the students give their depositions, with most of them telling the truth about their part in the way they treated Hannah. Clay tells Tony about the 14th tape he made with Bryce's confession. He then asks Jessica's permission to fight back against Bryce with the tapes, and gives her the option of burning the tapes, to which she chooses to fight. Justin meets up with Jessica, and she says she doesn't want anything to do with him after he says he contemplated suicide. We see him later telling Bryce about the tapes. Bryce declares no one will believe a dead girl, and Justin says his final goodbye to Bryce as a way of ending their long friendship and Bryce's manipulative hold on him. After Hannah's last try to get help from Mr. Porter fails, she steals a box of razor blades from her parents' store and slits her wrist in the bathtub until she bleeds out. We see her mom and dad eventually find her and in a panic try to save her. Clay tells Mr. Porter of this and of the tapes as well. He passes the tapes on to Mr. Porter and says he gets to decide what to do with them, as Hannah never said what to do once it got to number 13. Later, when Mr. Porter is listening to the tapes, Principal Bolin interrupts to tell him that Alex Standall has shot himself in the head the previous night and was in critical condition at the hospital. During Jessica's deposition, she is asked about the tapes Hannah made and claims she doesn't know anything about them. Later on, we see her about to reveal what happened to her the night of her party to her father. When Tyler gives his deposition, he spills the beans about the tapes that Hannah made and is the most blunt about the torment and bullying that goes on in the school. Tony had already given Olivia Baker the copy of the tapes on a USB, which we see them finally listen to after Tyler's deposition. We later see Tyler putting another gun in a chest which has multiple other guns and ammo, and he also has pictures of every student that treated him badly and takes down Alex's, which hints at what season 2 might have in store. At the school, Clay asks Sky to hang out after fearing that Sky may have the same fate as Hannah. He, Sky, Tony, and Tony's boyfriend all skip school to hang out that day, and that ends the first season. In my personal opinion, I really liked this season. I thought it was entertaining, and this series is a show. It's for entertainment, but I understand where a lot of the backlash came from. So first and foremost, the main complaint about the season was that it glamorized or glorified suicide. Now, I can see where people are coming from with that. I think that the whole creating tapes as a sort of revenge plot against people who tormented you, it is a bit like glamorized, I guess, but the opposite end of that is it showed when Hannah killed herself. It showed the scene, and it was very horrific to watch. So in that sense, I don't think that it was glorifying it, because if it was, it wouldn't show the horrific moment where she actually commits the act. But on that same note, a lot of people didn't like that that scene was showed, because studies have shown that if suicide is reported on or shown on TV or anywhere else, then the suicide rate is more likely to go up. There are guidelines that are in place that the show didn't follow in order to portray suicide and any other topics on the show safely, and I think that's something that got a lot of people upset at this show, and that's completely understandable. I think that they probably should have followed those guidelines more accurately, but at the same time, like I said before, this is entertainment. It's not a PSA, it's not some type of after school special type deal. It's just a show. You kind of have to take it with a grain of salt, but at the same time, it is a very, very touchy subject to bring up and talk about, so I understand where both sides are coming from. Another problem that people had with the show is that the characters were very unrealistic, or they didn't think that high schoolers talked or reacted in certain ways the way that normal high schoolers do. And also, people complained that the characters were too one-dimensional. I do agree that the characters are a bit one-dimensional, like Alex is an angsty teen. Justin is a douche who is a douche because of his background. Bryce is a douche who is also a rapist. Marcus is a douche. That's about it. Most of these characters don't really have too much depth to them besides Hannah and Clay. I do think that Hannah's character is a bit contradictory because you'll have one scene where she's very outgoing, very witty, very down to earth, and then you'll have other scenes where if something happens to her or about her, then she just completely gets all shy and like quiet and awkward, and it's just like a girl like her with her personality wouldn't handle the situation in that way, especially with the whole list episode where Alex makes the list about how she has the best ass. And also, people in high school don't act like that over a list. Only a few people would joke around about it and then they'd forget about it after like 2 or 3 days. There was also the complaint that Hannah herself wasn't too likable. She did things that seemed very contradictory, like for example yelling at Zach and then getting mad at him for walking away, or when she told Clay to get out of the room like 15 times and yelled at him and was hostile towards him, but then was saying, you shouldn't have walked away. It didn't really make sense. And then also another thing that didn't make sense was Alex's character. During his episode, he wrote out a list to be nasty and spiteful because someone wouldn't have sex with him, even though the entire show he is nothing like that. Whereas Ryan, for example, he is the arrogant asshole, and he stays that way the entire time, which I guess would mean that he is also a one-dimensional character, but his character at least stuck true to what his character was supposed to be. In the beginning, the dialogue was cringy at moments, like FML forever, or when Hannah left Justin on the bus, did that whole like, call me handsome. It was weird. There were quite a few moments that were like that, but as the show progressed, I think the dialogue did get a lot better. It was kind of half and half. The show itself would have the supporting cast meet up with each other and talk about the tapes vaguely. If you haven't gotten to the tape, they'll be like, oh, he hasn't listened to this one yet. Oh, you haven't heard this one yet. Oh, he's not there. It does kind of drag on a little bit, tiny bit. It wasn't terrible in terms of pacing, but it could have been shortened a little bit more. I do like dramatic shows like this. I like shows that make me want to cry. I like shows that get me depressed, so I didn't really nitpick too much about this. I mean, I know that suicide and rape and sexual assault are very tough topics to deal with, and I do think that the show could have handled those topics better, in my opinion, but it did not take away from me enjoying watching the show because at the end of the day, like I said, it is entertainment. It's coming back for a second season, and I'm very excited about that. As for what I think is going to happen in season 2, I've seen the trailer, but I do believe that there is going to be some type of school shooting involving Tyler with all the guns that he has. As far as Justin goes, I think that he would probably end up being homeless just because he always had Bryce's to stay at, but now he can't. I know the season is going to be about the trial, putting Bryce up and trying to get justice for what he did to both Jessica and Hannah, which it seems like a lot of people are targeting Jessica, especially probably because Bryce is like a superstar athlete at the school, which you see very often in a lot of cases in high schools. The show is really good about talking about tough topics. That's one thing that I will praise the show for. it has the balls to at least bring these subjects up and talk about them and make a show about them. I feel as long as it sparks a conversation, even if it's good or bad, at least the conversation is being had. It gets people informed. It has adults talking with their students or their children. I know the show's main message is to be careful about how you treat people and try to treat other people better. Because you never know what will happen and a tragedy may occur, which I think that's very true, and I think that you see that in a lot of shows, but I think this one kind of took it there. I have to give respect to the show creators and everyone who produced this and greenlit it for actually having the balls to make a show like this. That was my recap and review of season 1. Let me know what you thought of the first season, the controversy surrounding it, if you'll be watching the second season, what you think is going to happen in the second season. I want to know all of that in the comments. Let me know if I missed out on anything. I will be watching season 2 on my channel with some of my friends, so be on the lookout for that. Be kinder to each other. If you need help in any way regarding any sort of assault or suicidal thoughts that you may be having, talk to somebody. Reach out to a parent, a teacher, a guidance counselor. I mean, I know a complaint was that no matter who Hannah went to, it seemed like they didn't care or it didn't matter. That's not the case in real life. There are people you can talk to and it can get better. And with that being said, I will see you on the next video. Bye.